Welcome to Grab Load. I'm Anthony, and AMD has got out or reviews out for the 7900 XTX. And I want to know if you're buying one, what your thoughts are on them. And so leave it in the comments below, and we can talk about it a little down there. But I'm going to give you my thoughts now on this. It's an interesting card. It kind of lines up where AMD seems to be have priced it. It's a little bit cheaper than the 4080, $200 cheaper at $1,000 for the 7900 XT. You have the or XTX. The 7900 XT is 900. XTX is 1,000. You get the 48 at 1,200. You get the 49 at 1,600. And those are the MSRP prices. Finding those on the street price are we'll see. And I'm just going to do that because I don't know tomorrow's a release date, so I don't know how the 7800s are going to all look after release, and then A and B's I think are coming a little bit later, but that's just something to keep in mind. Now, this is a MCM design, so multi-chip design. So you have a total of what, 7 chips on the 7900 XTX. You got 6 memory dies, memory controller dies, and then you have one graphics die there. So I think there's going to be some growing pains with AMD and software and trying to get it all ironed out. But I think that and by iron out, I don't mean that there might be a lot of end user issues. I think there might be a lot of, hey, let's get performance stuff ironed out going forward. But that's just, something we'll talk about a little bit later. You're getting about 35% over the 6950 XT, which is a nice jump overall, and that's about 4K. I'm going to focus more on 4K benchmarks. 1440p, this looks like a nice jump as well. Now, if you're using for 1080, why? Why are you looking at these high-end cards for 1080p? I really want to kind of know that. Leave in the comments below. I'm really interested as to why. I see these as more of a let's go 4K, 1440p high frame rate type cards. The NVIDIA 4080, 4090 included in that. So let me know. Now seems to be a ray tracing performance uplift, which is good. AMD needed an uplift. However, depending upon what game it is, it seems like, hey, it's a nice uplift. It's not quite matching it's still behind the 40 series, but it's above the last gen series by a good margin, so it's a nice jump. And then you have games, and it looks like the games that are NVIDIA designed ray tracing, where it's just like, wow, why does this match last generation performance? So I don't know if that's like a Hairworks type thing with ray tracing or what, but if you're into ray tracing, you play those type games that NVIDIA sponsor for those ray tracing titles, there's no doubt in my mind you have to go NVIDIA for that, which is unfortunate if you want to have the best performance. Now, maybe there's a fix for this. This is, some of those things where you don't know what the black magic is underneath the hood for some of these ray tracing and everything else. And if you're not calling, exactly what, the DirectX line or whatever else, what is that change? So that's just something I want to know more about of why that is. I I love to have a card that or multiple cards that I could do a deep dive in, well, a lot of games, so I could do a deep dive and all that, but I don't. So I'm just going to have my speculations and my thoughts of trying to figure out why that is, right? I'm not going to get all that. Hey, and if you have something, leave it in the comments. I'm willing to take all the ideas out there to try to figure out something, right? That's the only way you really can. So these are improvements. This AMD came out. It looks like that they kind of slotted this card in exactly where they wanted it. And what I mean by that is that NVIDIA already had came out with that 4080, 4090, and AMD said, you know what? I think we can beat the 4080 in rasterization, and they kind of do about 5%, give or take, depending upon what the game is. Heck, in certain scenarios, it even looks better than that, right? But on average, about 5, 8, 10%, someplace in there, depending. But our ray tracing performance does not add up, so let's just price it $200 cheaper. Let's put the 7900 XT at $900 and for yields and everything else, and we'll see how this all slots up. That's kind of how my take is of how AMD put all this, which, fine, that's how they want to do it. That works for me. And we'll see as more and more people get into there, but overall, the reviews were positive and where kind of the graphics market is. And yeah, I agree. Where the graphics market is today, your performance per dollar is, the 7900 XTX, according to Hardware Unbox, it shows it as the best value on the market with MSRPs. You can get a little bit better if you go last gen, but let's look at current gen, and it's the best deal on the market. I think the 6800 is the best deal according to Hardware Unbox per frame at the discount prices. But other than that, if you're at MSRPs, the 7800 XTX is the best on the market for your per dollar amount. Which, if you're looking at it that way, frame per dollar, and that go, this is the choice. The 7900 XTX is the choice. Now, if you're looking for the specs, the 4090 is the best choice. And then it kind of goes on for there to make your decisions on whatever else. I want ray tracing, but I only want to spend $1,000. You don't have anything, so you got to go 1,200. I want the best ray tracing for 1,200. Well, then why don't you just spend $400 more and just get that 4090? There's good, questions about that, right? You have $100 difference in the two AMD cards. Yeah, what do you got? So yeah, that's kind of the gist of kind of my feelings in the current marketplace. It is placed exactly where it is. I was talking to a friend and he kind of was like, yeah, that's where the market is today. It's all lined up this way. Yes, you may want a card cheaper, but we don't have that choice for these high-end cards being in, let's say, even in underneath $1,000. They're just not there. The market's not asking for it. In fact, is we didn't talk about this. Well, I didn't bring this up with my friend, but I've been thinking, is NVIDIA kicking themselves by not charging a higher price for that 4090? They sell in that 4090 quite good at $1,600. Uh, you can always second guess yourself for these companies that have stockholders that keep saying we're going to do better and better on our margins. That's always something that comes up. I don't think Nvidia is going to be changing their pricing. I think AMD would change their pricing before Nvidia, right? Nvidia can point to, we have the best card, 4090. If you want the 4080, rasterization. We're not going to even mention that, but you just need to have, if you want your ray tracing, you got to come to us. We're going to have the best ray tracing across the board in this price point. Okay, and that justifies a $200 difference, I think, right? From NVIDIA's angle. Let's put it that way. I don't personally, if I'm NVIDIA, that's what I'm thinking. So, not me personally wanting to do that tech, I'm the person that's now buying used graphics cards to justify my purchases. That's where I'm at. Maybe you're in the same boat. I'm going to be looking at, if I want to upgrade this, I'll be looking at another used GPU at this point. I got a 6700 XT. Maybe I go to something a little bit more powerful from last gen, but I don't want to pay that much. Then I'll, sell this for something else. So just trade up or whatever, put this in a different system, or yeah, there's other, I can use this for other stuff. So yeah, this is the way it is. It looks like there's the power is a little bit more than the 4080, which is kind of surprising, but it kind of keeps in line with the 6900 of where the 6900 was. Now, it seems at some reviews they had some idle issues, and idle was changed depending upon what monitor was plugged in, unplugged, whatever. So is that a driver issue or firmware update that AMD needs to do to get this in line? That could be, as you as computer hardware, right, you get a lot more options and you get a lot more different setups out there than just what you might have in a lab. So these issues may come arise, and these are things you're going to have fixed. You know, we saw stuff like this even with the 2080, I believe they had some software issues that rolling out. And you get this every once in a while. It's hard to test everything, and I understand that. As somebody that works in the software industry, that's completely understandable. And hopefully AMD just does a better job every single time they learn about this. Hey, we need to test this config, this this scenario every single time. Now, there's a lot of different configs out there. You have SAM on, SAM off, um, bar on, bar off, rebar on, rebar off. You have different Intel platforms, DDR4, DDR5, 3D cache, non 3D cache. There's a lot of different scenarios now for different CPUs of exactly where it is that all these lined up. And I think this is just calling for more and more reviewers out there. And I don't expect one reviewer to test every different platform. I expect more reviewers to test different platforms so we have more numbers and more data to look at. That's how I see it going forward. Maybe it'll change, maybe we'll get more consolidated, which would be a shame. But I like to see more because I watched a lot of different videos to get a lot of different numbers. So I kind of had an understanding of where this is. Now, it looks to be like there was a couple driver hiccups here and there. These are, I think, press drivers. I think the official driver will be out tomorrow, right? Or someplace, a point around that time. And we'll see what AMD has kind of put in there, how they start performing once they get out to the general public. And if it's bad, I'll have an update. If it's not horrible, I probably won't say too much about it. But you have different scenarios that happen with all these different, options of software. And AMD does seem to be improving. If they keep getting more features like Fidelity FX, that's all going to be improvement. One other thing I like to say about these is it looks like I used DaVinci Resolve to render out my videos, and it looks like that they improved that render process at H.264 and H.265. So that's something to keep track of here. And their media encoding engines, something we're going to have to look closer at, especially if OBS gets this enabled and goes forward. And so there's can be a lot there that maybe AMD can start being something that even streamers are saying, hey, let's throw it in my system. For the games I play, this makes a lot of sense. They're streaming, it looks good, and let's run with this. So there's a lot there that AMD could go down the pipe as well. So yeah, there's, you got good render or raster, you have ray tracing improvement over last gen, not exactly where, depending upon which games you play, it's even better than the either matches or is better than NVIDIA's last gen. So that's all good. So let's kind of dive into, we talked about some of the driver issues and just where they need to go. And let's just talk about real quick is these driver issues and software issues. Is this something with the MCM design that you're first starting your first generation, kind of like first Ryzen, where kind of software, it was a nice improvement. We were all appreciative of that. Hey, let's get the 8 cores, let's get everything else. But if we look back at it and we remember correctly, it was not a perfect launch. There were software issues, there was corner cases, there was different things that happened running on this MCM design that you had to iron out because not everything was communicating perfectly, and not everything was just like a monolithic die where everything is right there. You had this multi-chip module approach where everything's kind of split out, so you have to, there's latencies and everything else involved. Is there stuff here with this GPU that still needs to be ironed out based upon the drivers and get that more ironed out where just switching these architectures from MCM to non-MCM, that there's issues that need to be ironed out and fixed up and improved on. Time will tell, right? If this is something like that, if AMD does it, if somebody in AMD software side or even marketing wants to do it, I'm not thrilled with AMD's marketing, but maybe they want to reach out and just be like, hey, yeah, we made a big mistake. we need to be improved as a marketing division. I agree. But they're no NVIDIA marketing machine, I will say that. but you know, I have some questions for that software division of where they're actually headed and how they're doing this, because I bet you that there's some improvements there, and it either is a team um, that's really focused and doesn't have enough manpower, or there's something going on there, or just didn't have enough time. That if there is a software issue, we'll see it in the next couple months if the games improve. If not, uh, yeah, whenever AMD does a refresh, I think that then it'll be good. Everyone will be looking for that refresh. I'll put it that way. So I will. I just want to say before I go on my little naming scheme issue here that I have with this is, you know, where the product's lined up. This is a little bit lower performance than what I expected, but it is kind of lining up per price of where everything is. I like to see this at that 50% over the 6950 XT, and it was at around 35. You could give it 40, but I'd say 35. And I like to at least seen it at 50% because AMD was touting kind of that 50% jump, and yeah, that's where I would like to have seen it. I think they were even touting more, but we'll just do 50%. So, naming. If we recall, and let's just go back in history so I can kind of, if AMD marketing is going to even pay attention to this, I'd like them to understand where I'm coming from. Because this is their doing, right? They had a 4080 and a 580 car. They even had a 590, but it wasn't really something to write home about. But you were going after that mid-range, and that's where we're going to be. Okay, fast forward to the 5000 series. You are now jumping in to your RDNA 1, and you did not have a high-end card, so you came out with that mid-range, that 5700, and you said, we don't have a high-end, we're going to hit this mid-range of where we're at, and it was a good card, 5700, released, and yeah, sold, made sense, how they price it. RDNA 2, the 6000 series, they're able to jump in to be at the high end, 6900, and they do a good job. They compete. Makes sense. The 7900, and I think this is where I get some of my disappointment from. I expected it to go after the 4090. When they were announcing this and it didn't come out with the 4090 benchmarks, I was disappointed. I'm like, where is that? I would have liked it. And then I've been thinking about it a lot the last few weeks since that announcement. And this should probably have been called a 7800 XTX and 7800 XT. I think that's where I would have put it if I was AMD. Now, if you look at it, it's still a rise in price over the 6800 XT, right? There's a jump in price there. Is it justified? That's that's another story, and I think that you'll know where I come down on that. But somebody that's a cheapskate that doesn't want to spend money on graphics card or much anything else. But one of the things I would like to have seen here from at least their marketing is that, yeah, we understand the 4090 was not when we were speccing our card, and AMD came out. They have a Halo type card. We understand that we're not going to be able to do it. We're going to come in with and compete with the 80 series here. We think that we're very competent in the 80 series. Now the 80 series isn't out yet, but we are going to, that's where we want our cars to line up. We're going to call it the 7800 XT and the 7800 XTX so that you guys can see where we're going to put these cards. Then I would have, in doing so, when these cards released, yeah, you would have maybe got flack for where the pricing is versus last Gen 8, that 80 series. But I think that, and I'm calling it the 80 series, NVIDIA is 80 and then this is 800, but it's the 8 series class. Okay, there we go. But I think that you would have been able to, reviewers would have looked at it in the price to performance, and you would still had, like Hardware Unboxed saying this is the best deal with the MSRPs according to, the cost per frame. So you would have had that. And I just don't get why AMD tried to, or is trying to peg this as a Halo card when it's not matching the 4090, but in name, not AMD's kind of said out. We're going to match the uh, 8 series class 4080, but we call it the 7900, and um, that's something that I wish AMD would clean up in their marketing. And they had the 8K, which is absolute BS. They need to get rid of that. Like they saw how bad Nvidia failed at with the 3000 series, so they decided to do it on the 7000. Uh, who's ever running AMD marketing needs to like literally send me an email and just be like, hey, yeah, don't talk about this, whatever. I won't, don't worry. But I'll tell you, you're doing something stupid. Don't do it. It's just like run it by somebody else besides yourself. I mean, at least have somebody in the room, maybe hire somebody that is not a yes man. And I'll say, this is a dumb idea. We cannot do this. We're going to get beat up on this. Okay. But that's kind of just where I am. Just the outside marketing stuff on this. I'm interested to see how these are going to sell. If you're going to buy one of these GPUs, post in the comments below. Let me know why. If you're going with 4080, let me know why. If you're going with 4090, I understand you want the best card out there. And you're looking at a $1,000 graphics card from AMD, $1,200, and you figured the $600 to $400, you can just flip and go to there. So now, in that, I do think that AMD can drop the prices of these cards before Nvidia was probably going to drop their prices. Why? I think there's more room to go with these MCMs. You can get a little bit more pricing structure. It looks like the PCBs are not as uh, complex as the 4080 and 4090 PCB boards. So you have that complexity too that's a little on the reference. So that's just something to keep in mind here. We already saw AMD kind of have these pseudo price drops on their current AM4 CPUs. I'm wondering, it's almost like AMD got too zealous in the AM4 and now the 7000 series, and they're just hoping that their fans are just going to propel them across the finish line. At the same time, you're competing in two markets that are a lot different, and let's say you would have made these $100 cheaper, it would have been a you would have, I think a lot of people would really be jumping on these. Now we'll see, maybe everyone's going to be jumping on them over the 4080 and you made a good call, and I could be wrong, right? But we'll see. I think you made this a lot closer for people on the decision side than what you really needed. So there is that, time will tell. These are, if you're building a budget PC, you're not looking at these, and if you're looking at high end, you're going to be doing your research. So, yeah, I like to be able to test one out. Let's put it that way. I like to be a test out of 4080 and 4090 too. So, I'll just leave that there. So we got a lot to think about. I think that there's maybe a lot more to come on this, and we'll kind of see where AMD kind of goes with everything. But are you buying one? Let me know in the comments below. I want to thank you guys for watching, and thank you guys for helping support Gray Overload and helping this channel grow. I really appreciate it. Till next time, God bless, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.